Jonathan, hey, congratulations on your new film, The Abandoned.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, not a problem. It's always delightful to watch these independent sci-fi films. But we have to hear it from you. Is what initially drew you, and how did this project came about for you?
Um, the initial draw for this, well, I'm a huge fan of sci-fi films in general, and especially this person in a box subgenre of sci-fi. I've always been fascinated by it. And at the same time, whenever you watch, films of a specific tried and true genre, there are inevitable pitfalls they kind of have to align themselves with. And for me, the script, when I read it, it it circumvented so many of those cheap cop outs that a lot of other sci-fi films have to take to move the story along. Um, and I think people inevitably are going to make a comparison to The Cube and other films like this. And while it's parallel, I think that we managed to achieve a certain layer of depth and complexity that with no disrespect to them, the Cube did not. Um, so I mean, as soon as the script came across, I went, I want to do this. There's characters in this that I've never seen in a film of this space or genre before that I think are layered in such a way that elevate the story versus kind of keep them locked down.
I do have to admit, in a film like this, it proves to be very challenging for an actor like yourself. I mean, this really stretches your acting chops per se.
Oh yeah, stretches it nearly in half. No, it was that was I mean that was the other, if you can call it fun, piece of the fun was taking on the challenge of taking on a role like this that was not just the physicality but the emotionality and allowing those things to still feel under the surface organic without trying to shine a light on anything in an over the top kind of way, and hopefully that came across.
So how do you get into a character that how do you get into the mentality of a character like this, especially the fact that I want to say you are in 98% of this film? Maybe more, maybe 100%.
Nearly 100% of the film, yeah. And uh getting into the character, I think we fortunately had a lot of prep. We had about 3 months of rehearsal, and one thing I was really struggling with was just this notion of, here's a person before we find him in the crux of the film who is already immensely isolated every day of his life, no matter where he is or who he's around. And I, both fortunately and unfortunately, have an amazing support system in my life, whether it be friends or family or my girlfriend at the time. And it was such a stretch for me to imagine, to even to begin to build a character like that, that the first thing I did was politely, and hoping not to be judged, say a temporary goodbye to everyone in my life and just told them, hey, I'm going to kind of disappear for a couple months and go do this project. And hopefully you can just respect that and not be pissed at me for it. So I did that, and then spent while we were shooting every waking day just kind of living in the role. Um, Sometimes to the great dismay of the producing team, I think I weirded a lot of people out. But ultimately, I think it was necessary just because of the short turnaround of the shoot and the emotional and physical demand of it. Really, just kind of called for immersion.
Now, how challenging for yourself, because as an actor, you tend to react to someone else, but you're the only person in that room. So you don't have any faces to actually react.
Right? Yeah. Um, well, Tamara Perry, who plays Damsey in the film, was physically on set, which was such an immense gift because I don't know if we would have ended up with half the film we did, were she not there to actually have just that energy and real time moments and moments to play off of. Um, I don't know how the film would have come together if it was me. In any given scene, there's always two points of view that we're watching engage and conflict with each other, and that's part of the beauty of filmmaking. trying to make assumptions for both of us, I don't think would have ever worked and would have been a disservice to her as she did such an amazing performance and what she brought to life just out of off-camera acting for the majority of the film. Um, yeah, she was there on set, and I think that was paramount to what we were able to achieve. Beyond that, the director Jason Satterland and I, through the months of rehearsal we had leading up to it, really developed a very unique bond and shorthand that allowed us to not waste time on set, kind of delving into the weeds of little momentary blips and blurps. And instead, it became a look, a word, um, a callback to something we had already spent hours, if not days, discussing that really just allowed things to kind of become this machine, albeit out of control machine that had no brakes and couldn't stop for any reason, but like at least a well-oiled machine.
Was it kind of claustrophobic in that production set that they created for you?
Yeah, we had several different unique iterations of the set, and each came with their own terrors. We had one that could spin like a hamster wheel. We had one the walls closed in on. Um, each one brought up and provoked. I mean, I've been a big wave surfer and snowboarder my whole life, so I've never really had fears of that sorts of stuff. And yet, this brought out fears of me that I didn't know that I possessed. And yeah, it was there was definitely a couple breakdowns, especially after shooting a couple moments where I was like, "What is going on with me? This isn't." That was acting. How silly. I'm not claustrophobic, and yet found myself panicking in elevators and such.
So it's all that tumbling. Is that you as a did your own stunts?
Yeah. Um, Unfortunately and unfortunately, because of the nature of the setups and the intimacy of a lot of the sequences, there was just no way to fake a lot of it with a stunt double. Um, and I, having done some stunts in the past and some stunt training, being the genius that I am, elected and volunteered just to do my own stunts. And it was hard. It was that in its own right was a real test of my limits and limitations, but we made it through it. So
The lovely fact of being in a sci-fi film is they always present sci-fi theories and formulas, and in this case, it's talking about fourth dimension and mathematical formulas. Do you even understand any of that stuff?
I do. Just don't ask me to explain it to you right now. No, I mean I do as far as I can throw it, but yeah, enough enough to wrap my head around the idea of trying to solve it. Beyond that, no. But yeah,
What, Jonathan, for you, why do you love doing independent projects such as this, like The Abandoned?
um, I think there is a certain degree of camaraderie and and artistic and creative liberty and agency that comes with independent films. Um, I think it's so much less color by numbers and creativity by committee and more of a true collaboration when you know that everyone's on set because they want to be and they believe in the film and they want to do something outside of the box, pun intended. Uh, but not just because they're doing it because they have to, because their team told them they should, or because the paycheck's really good, because the paycheck's never good in independent films. So yeah, I think it's true, unadulterated uh, creativity and creation.
Well said, well said. So what's up next with you after this?
I have a couple films that we're producing for my production company. One we partnered with Sean Penn's production company. That's a political thriller that takes place in 1980s El Salvador. And then from an acting standpoint, we have another uh, sci-fi kind of less contained but still limited sci-fi picture that doesn't have a title yet, and I'm not at liberty to talk about yet, but it's coming. So look for it.
That
Sorry
that
about the car horn.
No worries, no worries. And then let me wrap it up with one last question because right now you look entirely different from your character Miles in this
Sure.
film. Do you miss your clean cut short hair look from the film?
You know, my mother always said I should have pursued a career in espionage because my look changes every 3 months. So while I miss it a little bit, I'm sure it'll just around the turn in the next 3 or 4 months. So it'll resume that appearance. I will soon enough.
Thank you very much, Jonathan, for carrying this conversation with us for The Abandoned. It is a delightful movie. Sci-fi fans will definitely love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.